organized. No man is over me, I'm highest in the morning time. Lucky in the birds when I cross the state borderlines. Spin your block a horrified. Fucking bitch, you mortified. I'm standing where you draw the line, nigga, hold the line. My nutsack, I'm grabbing mine, both of mine, quit holding mine. You gon' get this work and some overtime, you know the vibe. Little nigga, you know it's me. I don't need them to notice me. When conflict get crucial, I can't help but do them bogusly. Smoke you like a stove, yeah. Beat you like you stole from me. Niggas out of body, put you back where you supposed to be. I shoot at you waking in the moment, niggas toast for you. My niggas do the most for me. That's what they supposed to. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think bad enough, be tested. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. Yeah, you know what's going, stop playing with me. Real gangsters move critically when they shit get critical. No peace amongst enemies, no pity for the pitiful. Real nigga down to the bones and the minerals. Stick to the G code, I never took another soul. True to the literature, now salute the general. Kill you on your birthday, dance out on your funeral. It ain't about the clout chase, I'm a man of principle. Niggas out of body, now they body isn't physical. Cradle to the casket, the life we get is typical. Got body cause I really punch your physical. Niggas living fantasies like they was the only one that talk to me about these streets. Fuck you like you know me from just.
What's good? Shalom. I know y'all see the title. What would Jesus do? Right? Yeah, we back at it, covering the book of Matthew in this New Testament series that we call What Would Jesus Do? Right? When we're going over the teachings of Jesus Christ, because the church don't tell us what Jesus taught. They talk about Jesus, but they don't teach us what Jesus actually taught. So that's what we're doing here at What Would Jesus Do? Right? And if we in chapter 17 right now in the book of Matthew, right? So yeah, like I said, we just you know, covering the whole book, seeing exactly what the man taught when he was on the earth. And of course, we want to give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh. And we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world mistakenly calls Jesus Christ, right? So yeah, we back at it. Yeah, this we're gonna start at Matthew chapter 17. So yeah, that's just what we gonna do. Really quick. Start at Matthew 17. And this is when him and the few of the disciples that met Moses and Elijah, right? When they seen the transfiguration of them and all that, right? So we won't get into it. Then the other part of the title is fixing the hood, right? Making peace in the hood, right? And that's what he also taught too, right? But yeah, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna read it. So yeah, let's start at the top. 17 and 1, right? And it reads, after these 6 days, Jesus take of Peter and James and John his brother, and bring them up unto the high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them. His face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. Right. So they just getting transfigured. That all that. Right. Then it says, then he answered Peter and said unto. Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt let us make thee 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Right? So, because that's who Jesus ended up seeing on that, who they ended up seeing when they went to the, to the mountain. They ended up seeing the transfiguration of Moses and Elijah. Then Jesus also got, transfigurated, during that time also, so, they can see that vision. Um, where we at? Boom, boom, boom. And it says, so so the disciples, Peter and them, they seen it, so they wanted to build like a shrine or a tabernacle so they can worship, to, I guess you can say, like, commemorate, the occasion, right? So let's see what he said to them. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him, right? And so that's, the Most High God, Yahweh, coming out, putting a stamp on the whole occasion, like, yeah, this is my son, hear ye him, putting a blessing on him, right? Because it's almost like when he went to go see Moses and Elijah, or when he saw Moses and Elijah, it's almost like you can say like a changing of the guard, right? Passing of the torch. Then, God giving his stamp like, yeah, this is, my son, right? And it says, in whom I am well pleased, hear ye him, right? And which is interesting because it goes back to this prophecy here, Deuteronomy 18 and 18, where it says this. It says, Deuteronomy 18 and 18 says, I will raise them up a prophet from amongst their brethren like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak unto them all that I shall command them. Right? So this is prophesying about who we know as, who the world know as Jesus Christ, who we know as the Mashiach Yahushua, right? So it's saying, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I command him, right? So that's what Jesus said when he came. He said, I do not my own will, but my Father's will, And so, like we see over here, it says, and while he yet speak, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him, right? So the Most High is putting a stamp on it, and we can see, the prophecy being foretold in Deuteronomy 18 and 18, because Christ is that prophet that was raised up like Moses, right? Then it says, and when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, and they were so afraid. And Jesus came and touched them and said, Arise and be not afraid. So, and that's how too, like, real quick, side note. When you hear these little filthy, nasty, dirty, pork-eating pastors talking about, oh, the God told me this, and the Lord told me that, and Jesus said this, and God said that. When these people heard God spoke, they were afraid and they fell to the ground and to try to hide themselves. Jesus had to come and tap them like, hey, yo, it's cool. It's all good. We cool. So whenever a pastor say, oh, yeah, God spoke to me this morning, or Jesus was, I just got a word from God. You didn't get no word from God, right? Because to hear the voice of the God is terrifying. And we see it. We see many occasions where the voice of God speak to one of these prophets or one of these individuals, and it says, and when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face, meaning they fell flat down, like, oh, shoot, get down. They bowed themselves down, right? And they were so afraid because they're like, oh, shoot, this is the voice of God. Oh, shoot, let me act right. They got scared, right? So Not like how these pastors, I seen this one video where I guess the pastor looking like he getting he getting, some a little download from the Most High as he's talking. So he's doing this and stuff like he just, some weird stuff, right? And the people just looking at it, and I'm looking like, do people read the Bible? I'm like, whenever God spoke to an individual, it was a dramatic thing, right? It was a terrifying thing, you know. So it's just crazy. But anyway, um, and then the disciples heard it, and they fell on their face, and they were so afraid. And Jesus came and touched them, and said, "Arise and be not afraid." Right? That's how a person really acts when they hear the voice of God. It's scary. It makes them afraid. Then it says, and when they had lift up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. And they said, and they came down from the mountain. Jesus charged them, saying, tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. Right? So, by the time they, got up off the ground, and because after they bowed down in fear, when they got up, Moses and Elijah and them and all that was gone, right? And it says, and his disciples asked him, saying, why then say the scribes that Elias must first come, right? So, which is a good question, right? Because he why did the scribes say that Elias must come? Then it says, and Jesus answered and said, Elias truly shall first come and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not. But they have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise, likewise also the Son of Man suffered them, right? So we know him to be talking about John the Baptist, right? But he's gonna clarify. And it says, then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist, right? And because we understood, even though we covered this before, because we, been reading through this book of Matthew, and I think, hold on, could have been like couple lessons ago, but so we dealt with this reincarnation thing. So we understood reincarnation or regeneration, right? Because we know after a certain generation we will come back, right? So John the Baptist was Elijah in the spirit, and Christ knew it. So then, so that's what he's saying, because although this body that we in now, it dies, but our spirit goes back to the Father. He judges our spirit, right? And then whatever that judgment be, whether good or bad, we live it out in our next life. So when we're born again, you come into so that newborn baby you see that just came out the womb, that newborn baby is about to live out the judgment that God gave to them for what they did in their last life. So whatever that little baby grow up to be or do throughout their life is the judgment that God put on them for whatever they did in their last life, right? I hope that makes sense. So they understood that John the Baptist was Elijah. So it says, then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. And when they were come to the multitude, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic, sore vexed, for oftentimes he fall into the fire and often into the water. And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him, right? So he got this, son that got this mental illness that's causing him to, cause harm to himself, right? And so the disciples tried to help him, right? Then it says, then Yahushua answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long should I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me. Right? So Jesus like, man, I'm trying to get you disciples right, 'cause I gotta die soon. So I'm trying to get y'all, ready so when I'm gone, y'all can do all of this without me, right? So he's like, man, like y'all gotta grasp what I'm saying. Y'all gotta pick up what I'm dropping, right? That's what Jesus telling them. You gotta pick up what I'm dropping. And he said, bring him to me, right? And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Then the disciples came to Jesus apart and said, why could not we cast him out? So, the disciples waited till after all that was over with. Then, they came to him a little later, like, hey, how come we couldn't do that? Like, what was going on? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if ye have a faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. So all we need is a little faith, right? And Christ was saying, like, you didn't have the faith, you got to have the faith to cast out these demons, right? And that's what we do here. We casting out demons, right? Casting out demons are the lies and the philosophies of Christianity, right? And so it says, where is it? It says, because of your unbelief, verily I say unto you, ye have a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence. So, and that's all we need, just the faith in the Most High, faith that He's gonna do what He said He's gonna do. Faith in we do what we do, and He's gonna do what He do, right? And it's gonna work, right? Because He said that's what He'll do, the promise, right? But if you dealing with in these spiritual battles and you don't have the faith, you're not built up spiritually, right? You don't know how to conquer these certain demons that you may be facing, then you won't be able to cast out these demons like the disciples wasn't, because they didn't have the faith. They didn't have the spiritual strength to do so, right? So Christ is trying to work with His disciples to build them up spiritually, so when He leave, He can be able to lead them, and they can do all the great things that He wants them to do, right? But, and the thing with us also, we have to build up our spiritual man, right? Our spiritual man, our spiritual woman, right? For the simple fact, like Peter says, technically paraphrasing, it's like we got our natural man, then we got our spiritual. So oftentimes our spiritual man and our natural man fight with each other, right? That's why you feel the struggle between doing good and doing bad, or something that is right, versus something that you just want to do, right? So we have these little spiritual battles within ourselves, right? But what we need to do, what we should do, and what we want to do is build up that spiritual man, right? So whenever that natural man rises up, that spiritual man will be strong enough to take down the natural man. Then you will do what's right, what I'm saying, versus doing what you feel is good, and you would, so, and that's what that's what, Peter was speaking on. But right here it says, where am I? Boom, boom, boom. So, yeah, so, so when it says, your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, ye have faith as grain of a mustard seed. So, like I said, once you built up that spiritual man, right, and it's stronger than your natural man, right, you have that faith, you have that spirit to conquer these certain demons that may come about, right? But if you're not, feeding your spiritual man, that milk, how the Bible say, because you start with the milk first. Because just like a baby, you give a baby milk first. Then as the baby grows, then you start giving it more solid food. So your spirit, you have to start your spirit, feed your spirit that milk first to build it, make it strong. Then as it gets strong, you start giving it the the meat, the more solid foods and stuff. Then until your spirit man, your spiritual man gets strong and strong. Until where your spirit man is more dominant than your natural man, right? Then it says, howbeit, howbeit this kind goes not out by prayer and fasting. It says howbeit this kind goes not out but by prayer and fasting. So sometimes, like I was telling somebody the other day, talking to my brother-in-law the other day, I was saying, sometimes you can get rid of demons by praying, reading the Bible, but then sometimes you gotta pray and fast. You gotta use all your spiritual uh, capabilities to get rid of these demons, right? And so this was Christ was saying, like, because certain spirits are stronger than others. You're gonna need help. Certain things you can't do by yourself. Because a lot of times we isolate ourselves and we try to think that we can conquer stuff by ourselves. All we need is ourselves. We just gonna conquer it. But the Bible says man wasn't made to live alone, right? So we need partners in this walk, right? You need someone that can walk with you and help you, so when you fall, they can help you back up, right? So, you need somebody right there, right? Because nobody can do it by themselves, right? Then it says, howbeit this kind goes out not, howbeit this kind goes not out, but by prayer and fasting. So you have to stay prayed up. You have to be fasting and all that, right? And to keep your spirit strong, right? So when these demons come about, you can cast them out because your spirit is built up and is stronger than your natural body, than your natural man, right? So then it says, and while they abode in Galilee, Jesus said unto them, the Son of Man shall be betrayed unto the hands of men, and they shall kill him. And the third day he shall be risen again. And they were exceedingly sorry, right? So, they were hearing this, and it kind of made them sad, Of course it would make them sad. It's their friend, it's their guy. He talking about, he got to die. He got to die soon, right? So, then it says, and when they were come to Capernaum, they that received a tribute money came to Peter and said, do not your master pay tribute? Right? So now this is important. Just hear what Jesus had to say about slavery, right? Because our people, especially here in these Americas, we think because, we go to work, we punch a clock, what I'm saying, like, we allowed to walk around and drive cars and stuff. We think we're not in slavery. But our people, our ancestors, we understood what slavery is. We understood if we're under any other government other than the government we set up ourselves, that is a form of slavery. It don't always have to be you in a cotton field picking cotton, right? It can just be you're subject to a whole nother system that's not your creation. And we're so indoctrinated and so sheep-like that we just want to belong. We just call ourselves American citizens and don't even know what that means, right? We just think we're citizens and everything's just all good, right? But don't understand that, like I said, like if that's not your nation, then you are essentially a second-class citizen, right? And it says, do not your master pay tribute? Yes. He said yes, and when he come unto the house, Jesus prevented him, saying, what thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom do the whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute of, right? So he's asking them, like, the people that's ruling right now, who do they take tribute from, right? Who do they tax? Who are they going around taxing? The people that's ruling this planet, who are they taxing? That's what Christ is asking Peter. It says, take custom or tribute of their own children or of strangers. That's what he's asking. Then Peter said unto them, of strangers. So we understood whenever we're under somebody else's government, we are the slaves, okay? Because they're taxing us, right? That's why Jesus said, do it. The people that run this world, the Roman Empire, are they taxing the people or are they taxing everybody else? They taxing everybody else, right? If you know the history, that's what they did. That's how they got rich, and by stealing and taxing everybody else, subjugating every other nation to Rome, right? And it says, and Peter said unto him, of strangers, and Yahushua said unto him, then are the children free? So then we have to ask ourselves here in America, we're paying taxes to a foreign government. I don't care how long we've been over here, for 400, 500 years. We're not American. They stole us. They kidnapped us. We don't belong here. So although they use fancy words to try to make us feel like we're citizens, but they don't treat us like citizens because we're not citizens. That's why they have something called the Bill of Rights. Because if we were covered under their Constitution, it wouldn't be no civil rights. Not the Bill of Rights. I meant to say civil rights. That's why they got us under their civil rights. Because you don't need civil rights if you have if you have the law of the land and everybody is subject to that law of the land. Why the hell we need civil rights? That's because we're not covered under the law of the land. That's why we need civil rights, right? So, but we don't think that far because we listen to their fancy words and be like, oh, we're American. We put our hands on our hearts and say pledge allegiance. No, we're not, okay? Because he said this. And Peter said unto him, of strangers. And so let me start right here. It says, and Jesus prevented him, saying, what thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? Right? So Christ is like, look, these people, these little grimy bastards, they taxing the whole world. But do they tax their own people? No. They taxing everybody else that they got subject to. Right? Because taxes is a form of slavery. If you don't understand that. If you don't understand that, then maybe you shouldn't have celebrate 4th of July a few weeks ago. Because that's what that was about. Right? Because America was paying taxes on tea and everything else that they didn't want to pay. And they fought a war over that because they said that was slavery. And Christ right here is telling us also paying taxes to a foreign government is slavery, right? But we're so colonized, we don't even look at it like that. We just think it's just business as usual, right? But it says, and Peter said unto him, of strangers. Jesus said unto him, then are the children free? So that's the question. So are we free? That's what we should be asking ourselves. And hell no, we're not free. And they would never ever let us go. Right? Not, they would not let us go. At all. Then it says, notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go down to the sea and cast hooks and take up the fish that that first come up, and then thou open his mouth, and thou find a piece of money, that take and give to them for me indeed. Right? So, yeah. So Jesus like, I will give them their little funky little money, right? But, matter of fact, it's a fish that been in the water, he been down there, he done swallow a couple of coins by accident. Just go catch that fish, and that's the money we're gonna give it to him, right? So, but the point is, Jesus understood, Yahushua understood that slavery is paying taxes to a foreign government, being ruled by a foreign government, and we are being, Black, Hispanic, and Native American people are being ruled by a foreign government known as America, right? And if you don't understand it, then I don't know what to tell you, right? Because we didn't ask to come here, right? We wasn't sitting in a conference room writing up the Declaration of Independence with them. We wasn't doing that, right? So it says, and notwithstanding, it says, notwithstanding, lest we should offend them. So let me start back at 26. Peter said unto them, of course, of strangers, Jesus said unto him, then are the children free? So the answer is no, the children are not free. Then it says, notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go to the sea and cast a hook and take up the fish that first cometh up, and when thou hast opened its mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money that take and give to them for me and thee, right? So that's how he handled that situation, right? So chapter 18. Then it says, and the same came at the same time the disciples unto Jesus came. At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them, right? So now this is important. This is an important lesson that Christ is about to break down for the people, right? And this is how we need to view this thing, okay? And and this is how we get understanding, right? And because a lot of times we want to understand and want to know why, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like hold on, let's go back to it. Right here. So it says, let me read it again. It says, at this time the disciples came unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? So, like I said, a lot of our people got the unction to want to learn this Bible and understand it, right? And, such a shame that dealing with this filthy, nasty Christian church, they did a horrible job teaching our people this Bible, right? So, a lot of us don't know this book, right? And in order to learn this book, we have to do like what it's about to say here, right? And we're going to read it. Hold on 1 second. I'm just trying to find this one verse over here. All right. So it says, I'll read it again. So it says, at the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as a little child, as little children, you should not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Right? So this is very important to understand. A lot of people misunderstand this part. So what is this talking about? This is talking about being teachable. Be somebody that is able to get molded and rebuilt, tear down and rebuilt up to be a spiritual person, right? Don't, because a grown person, let's take it as the metaphor he's using. So you're grown, right? You live your life, had your experiences. So the knowledge that you have in you, the wisdom that you have in you, that's built over time, right? And you're not going to change that, right? It's going to have to take a divine intervention to change your standard of wisdom that you have, right? But, so you cannot have that mind frame trying to learn this Bible, right? Because you have to have the capacity to learn new things. And if you don't know how to learn new things, or you're not capable of learning new things, right? Then you're not going to be able to learn. But a child is able to learn new things because a child is curious. A child is always asking questions. A child always want to know things, right? I was walking to the store with my son, or every time I go to the store or walk somewhere with my son, he asks me a million questions until we get where we go. Because a kid wants to know stuff, right? So when it says, and Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and be as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So what does that mean? Once again, that means, as our brother Kendrick Lamar says, sit down, shut up, and be humble. Be like a child. Be teachable. Stop being that person that think you know everything, right? Stop being that person that think nobody can't tell me nothing, right? Who this nigga think he talking to, right? Don't be that person. Always want to know stuff. It's stuff in your head right now that you know you don't know, right? Instead of being pompous about it, why don't you be a student, right? Be a student. There's nothing wrong with being a student. I'm a student. I'm still a student. I learn every day, right? And so everybody has to know how to be a student before they can be a teacher. Everybody wants to be a teacher. They want to be a master. They want to show everybody what they know. But, if you're not able to accept information, have capacity to take in new information, then, how you can't teach anybody because you can't educate your own self, right? Let's see. Let's get this real quick, right? So, like, right here, let's start. John 3. Let's start at the top, right? So, John 3:1 says, or let's start at 2. The same came to Yahushua by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God. For no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again. So this is, you go to Christian church that say, must be born again. They dip you in the water, and you come up as a wet sinner, right? That's not being born again, right? Getting baptized in that nasty, filthy, gnat-filled water is not being born again. Being born again is changing your mindset. Quit being a freaking know-it-all. Quit being a damn, I know what I'm doing, ain't no nigga can tell me nothing. But be like a child, a teachable person, right? A coachable person. Someone that can learn the truth. Someone that God can sit his spirit with. Take the Holy Spirit and sit it with you. And then you can sit and absorb all the knowledge that the Holy Spirit is dropping. That's what it means to be born again, right? Not, getting dumped in some nasty, filthy, dirty, mold ring around the dango pool of water, right? Not that stuff, right? Not that little pool that the little pastor have in that little basement of the church where nobody's around. He fill it up and have your wife and him and they drinking and hanging out in the baptizing pool with cocktails. Not that one, right? That's not being born again. We're talking about being like like a childlike mind, meaning you're curious, you want to know questions, you're like that little kid that's always tugging on the adult arm or, pants leg, always asking questions. Be that guy, right? So it says, except a man be born again, born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom, right? Which is born of flesh is flesh, and which is born of the Spirit is spirit, right? So, and when it says being born of the water, it's not talking about, like I said, it's not talking about dipping you in that nasty, filthy, lime infested water, right? Not talking about that. It's talking about, because when a baby is in the embryo sac, right, it has water in it, right? So we're going off the analogy of a child being curious and asking adults questions to learn things. So we have to stay on that analogy, right? So when it says being born of water, we have to take it a little further back, because he said you have to be like a child, right? So that means you have to hit your brain, press the reset on your. This is called brainwashing, right? A lot of times, brainwashing get a bad reputation, but our brain, we are washing our brains now with the truth. Okay, so we've been, however long you've been dealing with that filthy, nasty, dirty church and Christianity, our people been stuck in it since we've been taken over in slavery. So now this is the real brainwashing right here, when we cleanse our mind of that filthy paganism that we've been taught, right? So it says, and Jesus said, "Verily I say unto thee, except a man be born of the water and the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom." Because you have to reset your brain all the way. I tell people all the time, if you, and I said, I don't tell people stuff that I don't do or haven't did myself, right? And know to be true. Before I even came to the truth and understood I was the Israelite, I tell people the story all the time. I read this Bible several times before I even knew that I was an Israelite, right? Then those times I read it, I said, I'm going to read this Bible with no preconceived notion. I'm going to read it like I'm reading it for the first time ever, right? And I tell people all the time, when I did that, the first time I did that, I was pissed off. And why was I pissed off? Because when I read this book, I realized that God was dealing with a group of people, and only that group of people, and he was going to save those group of people, and I didn't know how I fit in that, right? That's how, that's my understanding that I got just by reading the Bible in context without thinking about what I learned in church and all that. Just read it. And even without me understanding that I am an Israelite and this book is for us, I read it and I said, hold on, who is these Israelite people? For a half a second, I was kind of mad, right? But then, of course, now I got the full understanding, and I understand that this book is for us, right? But, so what we're saying is, we have to be teachable, right? We have to be coachable. We have to not be a know-it-all, right? Now, in my studies, I could have, say, all right, well, forget the whole Bible thing, because it's not talking about me, right? And just left it there. But I decided to dig deeper, right? And that's what we got to do. That's what it means by being childlike. You have to ask questions, research, study, stay in tune in the scriptures, right? Ask questions all the time, right? Then it says, and like I said, reset your brain to all that, and you have to understand everything you learned about this book from church, whether it's from church, your family members, whatever, is a freaking lie. They lied to us, whether they did it on purpose or just because somebody else told them that. They lied. And we have to come to that conclusion. We have to accept it, and deal with it, right? And that's just what it is. Because we were lied to. That's why we don't understand this book. Because it's a concentrated effort to lie to us about it, right? And once we get that understanding, like I tell people all the time, like especially, all right, I know I'm going off a little bit, but we're going to get back. Because we're talking about being childlike, right? We're talking about what that means is we're talking about being able to, be teachable, right? So you can receive the knowledge. So yeah, we gotta be, able to, receive it because, like I said, because we have to, because we've been taught so many lies with this stuff, right? And it says, hold on, read one more time. It says, verily I say unto you, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water, he cannot enter into the, born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. That is born of flesh is flesh, and what is born of spirit is spirit. Marvel not that I say unto thee that ye must be born again, right? And so yeah, we have to, you know, come at this thing like with a fresh mind, right? And that's the only way we're gonna understand this thing, right? Then it says, marvel not that I say unto thee, you must be born again. The wind bloweth where it is listed, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but cannot tell whence it come and whither it go. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit. So it says that the wind where it is list, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but cannot tell whence it come and whither it go. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit, right? So and that's the thing, is like we have to just reset our mindsets, understand that everything they told us is a lie. This is what I was going to say. I tell people that we don't, if they're not an Israelite and they're preaching this book, they have stolen property. We should not listen to no person that's not a black, Hispanic, or Native American person, because those are the Israelites, that's preaching this book. And I go a little deeper. We should not listen to anybody that's not a black, Hispanic, or Native American that's not teaching this book. I mean, who's, that's, all right, let me start over. We're going to go a little deeper. Should not listen to anybody that's not a black or Hispanic or Native American that's got the Bible in their hand. We also should not listen to anybody that's not a black or Hispanic or Native American, or we should not listen to anybody that's black and Hispanic and a Native American that is preaching Christianity, because they're brainwashed and they're teaching us a false pagan religion, right? Now, but at the same time, God gave us the Spirit to understand this book. So when I say that you should not let no white man tell you this damn book. They lied to us for 500 years. Why the hell you think they're going to tell us the truth now, right? They won't, right? They would, when you go to church or seminary school, or like they call seminary school, you're learning plantation doctrine, right? You're not learning the truth of the Bible. That's why certain verses we read in this book, everybody be like, oh, wow, I didn't know that was in there. Why? Why would we not know this is in here, right? It's the reason why we don't know these verses in here, because pastor don't read them. And he's told not to read them. He's paid a nice amount of money from the government to not read what's in this book, right? It says, so yeah, that's what we understand. So yeah, then Chinese people, Japanese people, Korean people, that what's that guy name? I'm trying to think of that little pastor, little Korean pastor dude that be on, so we shouldn't listen to them teach our stuff. That is very not smart, okay? And you say, well, that sounds racist, Quentin or Asher, brother Asher. Why is that? But why are you saying that we shouldn't listen to white people? My pastor is white, right? I have a Chinese pastor, right? I have an African pastor. I'm going off of what the scriptures say, right? And that's proven, right? We're going to get back to the whole Matthew John thing, right? But we have to understand what this coming back to our culture and being childlike and understanding. So we have to shed that false understanding that we learned, that Christianity dogma. And understand that this Bible is for us, right? Yes, we're in the New Testament. So let's stay in the New Testament, and prove it. Just get. Because people act like the New Testament. I was talking to this convert, this little fake Jewish woman, which is crazy. And they act like the New Testament is totally different from the Old Testament, like the people that switched up, right? So this is Romans 3:1. So Romans 3:1 says, "What advantage then have the Jew?" So people say, "Well, okay, I'm an Israelite. Okay, I'm an Israelite. So what did that mean? I'm an Israelite. So what? What did that mean?" Right? That's what people want to know. But here's Paul, right? The leader of the new school, Paul, right here. Let's see what Paul says. "What advantage then have the Jew? Or what profit is there in the circumcision?" So, okay, you're an Israelite. You got the covenant with God. So what's all great about that? Much in every way. That's how cold it is to be an Israelite. Much in every way. Right? Just read it from the top. "What advantage then have the Jew? Or what profit is of the circumcision?" Right? Why are we so great? What makes us just this cream of the la creme? Because I'm an Israelite, right? It says, much in every way. Chiefly because, why is it much in every way that is the greatest thing in the world to be called an Israelite? Chiefly because unto them, who's the them? The Israelites. Chiefly mean more importantly, right? Because that unto them were committed the oracles of God. That's why it is so cool to be an Israelite, because God trusted us with this book right here. All the scriptures, he gave it to us. And gave us the knowledge and the light, the wisdom, the understanding to break it down. Right? So that's why it says, what is the advantage then the Jew? Or what profit is the circumcision? Much in every way. Chiefly because unto them were committed the oracles of God. Right? So God charged us with the understanding of this book. He gave us the knowledge of this book. Yes, there's a few of us that practice Christianity that don't know what the hell we be talking about. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the ones who God gave the light to of our people to understand this book. And that's who we should be listening to. We should not be listening to anybody that's not a flesh and blood Israelite and don't have the proper understanding of this book, right? Because God only gave it to us. We're reading it in the New Testament right here. What advantage then have the Jew, or what profit is there of the circumcision? Much in every way, chiefly because unto them were committed the oracles of God, right? That's what Paul said, right? Paul saying that it is very cool to be an Israelite, right? It is the greatest thing ever to be an Israelite, right? Let's get before I go there, let's get let me say that, but all right, go here. Let me say that. We'll go back to Romans, but let's go here. We're still keeping on the thing. Let's go to Amos real quick. We're going back to all of that. So Amos, right here. Amos 3:1. Hear the word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel. Who's the children of Israel? The Black, Hispanic, and Native American people. Against the whole family which I brought out of Egypt. Because we know the story of Moses in Egypt, we was taken out of slavery from Egypt, right? Saying, this is what God says, right? So we know who he is speaking to. He's speaking to the people of Israel that were enslaved in Egypt, and then he brought them out. That's who he's talking to, right? So this is what he says to them. You only. We know what that means. You only, right? So if it's two people right there or whatever, and I'd be like, you only, right? That means I'm not talking to the other person. I'm talking to you only, right? That's clear, right? It says, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. So all 7, 8 billion people, however you want to count it up to be, he said, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. So God only knows us, right? So why would anybody else have these scriptures in their hand that's not an Israelite trying to teach black Hispanic people the Bible? They're wrong for that, right? They got stolen property because it says, you only have I known of all the families of the earth, right? So that's clear, right? Let's get one more, okay? That's not good enough for you. Let's get this one. Because we got to understand that this is not a universal book. This is a very exclusively book to the Israelites. You know, it's not inclusive, it is exclusive, right? It's not inclusive. It's not all inclusive. It's not an all inclusive pass. No. Members only. It's just that we done allowed these people to take our book and created a billion gazillion religions off of it, and nobody says anything, right? Psalms 47 and 19. 147 and 19. He showed his word unto Jacob, which is the Israelites. That's what he did. He showed his word unto us, the Israelites. He showed the word to us, the scriptures, the knowledge. He gave it to us. He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. So he gave us the understanding. He showed us, we witness what God does whenever we disobey him. We know how he gets down. These other nations don't know, right? But we know, right? Because you can read this book and you can see how he jacked us up. And you can look at us here in America for the last 500 years to see how he jacked us up. And it's exactly how he said he was going to do in here. So, because it says, he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. His judgments, we know his judgments because we see what he does. Because he did it to us, right? And we know what this book says, right? We know the statutes because he gave the law to us. With Moses in them, at the bottom of Mount Sinai, he was talking to us. And we said, okay, yes, my Lord, we would do all those things, right? He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. What have he done? He has not dealt so. What does it say? He has not dealt so. He has not dealt so with any nation. So anybody outside of Israel, he's not dealing with them. Because it says right here, he has not dealt so with any nation. As for his judgments, they have not known them. They don't know this freaking Bible. That's why they got 1 million religions, right? Because they knew this Bible, it wouldn't be 1 million religions. They'll be sitting their ass down somewhere, listening to a black, Hispanic, or Native American person teach them the Bible. That's their place. To sit their ass down somewhere and learn from a black man, a Hispanic man, or a Native Indian man. That's what they're supposed to be doing, like the Bible said, right? We're supposed to be a light to the Gentiles, not the other way around. A freaking Gentile should not be having this book teaching us a goddamn thing, right? That's out of order. But we will go to a church with a damn Chinese person, a damn Korean person sitting in the damn pulpit teaching you. When the Bible says a damn Chinese person, Japanese person, fucking Asian person cannot even enter into the damn congregation forever, ever. They're not even allowed to be around the damn temple. Why the hell they got the Bible? Why are you sitting in there, damn, that's his name, John Prince, J. Prince, whatever that nigga name is, that Korean dude. Why are you sitting there listening to him? When he's not even allowed to come even near the freaking ground of the damn church building. Forever. That's what the Bible says. Right? That's what it says. he has not dealt so with any nation, and as for their judgment, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh, right? That's what it says, right? But we don't know that because Pastor don't read these things to us. We just think this is a universal book. God is just love everybody, right? No, this is our God only, right? Let's prove that one more time before we move on. Right here, Joel 2:27. And ye should know that I am in the midst of Israel. Who's the Israelites? The black, Hispanic, and Native American people. And I am your God. Who God? I am your God. Who God? I am your God. And who? And ye should know that I am in the midst of Israel, that I am your God, and none else. That's what it says, right? That's what it says. I'm not making it up, right? This is the Bible right here. He's telling us that he is our God and none else. We read that in 3 different places, right? And it says, and my people shall never be ashamed. We're not going to be ashamed when we know this information. I'm not ashamed to tell you that he is our God and none else, right? And I'll fight anybody that say that he's the God of the whole world, because the Bible doesn't say that. You will never find this spot where he says he's everybody. It says he's the God of Israel, yes, right? Did he create everybody? Yes. But he created them to serve the Israelites. That's why he created all these people, right? So, and we got to know that. We got to understand that, right? Back over there. Oh, I'm over here with it. That's right. Supposed to go back over here. So, who was it? Oh, yeah. All right. Over here. Then we're going to go there. So, still keeping about the whole coming back as a child, right? See, this is very deep because we even, get past that part, right? Still coming back as a child. Hold on. It's very deep. So, let's get right here. It says it's Elijah, not Elijah, Isaiah 28 and 9, right? It says, whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make understand doctrine, right? So going back to coming back as a little kid, how Christ said you have to be like a little child, right? And it says, but them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast, just like a little baby, you have to feed the baby milk first, right? Before the baby get big enough and strong enough to eat solid food. So when you're coming into this truth, this understanding, you have to start with the milk. That's the basics, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, keeping the faith, learning the feast days, learning what God wants us to celebrate and how he wants us to worship him, right? That's the foundation. Then it says we can learn then we can get the milk, right? Then we can get the meat. Then it says, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line. Here a little and there a little. Right? Then it says, for with stammering lips and another tongue should he speak with his people, right? So, that's what we got to understand. So, and that's what we're doing now. We're speaking, he is speaking to us, and that's why this Bible is written in English, right? Because it says, for with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak with his people. Meaning, he's not going to speak to us, clearly no more, right? But he's going to speak to us like we're foolish, like we're stupid, right? With stammering lips and with another tongue, meaning with another language. And that's how how we're communicating with English. We didn't speak English, right? We spoke a dialect of Hebrew, right? We didn't speak this stuff, but like our people didn't speak Spanish, right? They spoke a dialect of Hebrew down there. Our people didn't speak Creole. They spoke a dialect of Hebrew down there, right? So it says with another tongue will he speak with another people. So our people that's down in the Caribbean that's speaking Spanish and French, right, or Creole, that's him speaking to his people in another tongue. Our people here in America that's speaking English, right, he's speaking to us in another tongue because we, like I said, we got conquered and everything, but that's all another story. But and that's why it's important to come back as a little child because, like it says in verse 13, we're gonna jump down to 13. But the word of the Lord was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go and fall backwards and be broken and snared and taken. So that's why you have to study and come back as a little child, because you can call yourself doing precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little, but you're putting stuff together that doesn't go together, right? So you're just making stuff up. You're basically making up your own doctrine because you're not studied and you're not learned, right? So you're gonna be like, you would read something like, well, like you'll see something like, for example, I'm just looking. It says, this Matthew 20. It says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man, right, in his house." So then you look at another verse and see the word heaven, and it's talking about like the birds of heaven was flying high, right? So then you'll be like, so then a bad use would be, well, the word heaven is right here and heaven is over there, so these two things go together. No, that's not how it goes, right? So the verses have to be aligned in context as well, not just because you see some similar words in this verse and similar words in that verse. No, the context have to match also, right? So, which is funny. It's this guy, real quick. It's this guy that be calling precepts, and like when I was first learning, it was fun. It was funny to hear because it was entertaining. I ain't gonna front. It was entertaining. Because I'll listen to him pull these precepts that I know don't have nothing to do with what he's trying to explain right then and there, but he'll do something to try to, I don't know how he did it, but it was just entertaining. But he's a prime example of, just not understanding what precept upon precept means, right? And so yeah, a lot of people is like that. That's why it's important to be born again like a child, right? Let's go back over here. It says, let's start right here, matter of fact. It says not, alright, I'm gonna start here. It says, Ezekiel, boom, boom, boom. Let's start at 2, right? Ezekiel 3 and 2, right? Because that's that's what I tell people. You gotta accept this whole book from Genesis to Revelation and even the Apocrypha that I got right here. You gotta accept the whole book, right? And you gotta eat the whole scroll, the whole roll, like it says right here. It says, start at 1, and it says, "Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, eat that thou findest, and eat this roll." And this roll is talking about the scriptures, right? This wisdom, the knowledge, the word of God. That's what this roll is, right? That the angel is telling Ezekiel to eat. Like, study, knowledge, get your knowledge, your understanding, your wisdom, get it up, right? And so, and soak it all up, eat it all, right? Because sometimes we will read this Bible and some of us will see something that we don't probably agree with, or something that might be against our lifestyle, and we'll just push it to the side or ignore it, and or just act like it don't exist, like that verse doesn't say what it says. But we can't do that. We have to eat the whole thing, right? Digest this whole book, right? And accept it, right? And the parts that you may find that's not conducive to your lifestyle, then that's what you need to change in your lifestyle. The Bible doesn't tailor itself to, the Word of God doesn't tailor itself to your lifestyle. Your lifestyle should be tailored to the Word of God, right? But oftentimes we would read this book, oh, well, I don't like the Bible says this, so I'm going to ignore that part. That's why we got something called Christianity, where they only focus on half of the book, right? Nobody will buy a ticket and go to a movie theater to watch half of a movie, right? You know the movie start at 5 o'clock. You're not going to be like, well, it started at 5. I bought my ticket, so I'm just going to show up at 6. Nobody does that. Nobody would do that, right? Nobody will go to a bookstore and say, how much for half of that book? Nobody would say that, right? I don't think anybody would say that. But we will grab this Bible right here, and we will open it up in the middle and start reading it and act like everything else in the damn Bible didn't exist or matter anymore. That's what we do. Because that's what Christianity taught us to do. It taught us not to be critical thinkers, right? And it says, so I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. And he said unto me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and fill thy bowels. Meaning, digest this knowledge, digest this truth, and understand it. Internalize it. Live it, right? Then it says, and fill thy bowels with the roll that I give thee. Then I eat it, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. Meaning, once he got this knowledge, he felt good about it. It made him feel good. Like, man, this is dope. I know the truth now. I know what's going on out here, right? Then it says, and he said unto me, Son of man, go get thee unto the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them. For thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel, right? So like, look, I'm not sending you to, and this is another cut on Christianity that think that this is a whole universal thing. God said, I'm not sending you to, because what is Ezekiel, right? Ezekiel is an Israelite, right? He's a prophet, he's an Israelite, right? And what did God say? I'm not sending you to a strange people. I'm not sending you to nobody that you don't know, Ezekiel. That's what he's telling them. I'm not going to send you to a place where you can't understand their language, right? I'm sending you to your own people, to the Israelites, right? And he says this. He says, not too many people of strange speech and of a hard language whose words thou cannot understand. Surely I have sent thee unto them, and they would have hearkened unto thee. It says, but the house of Israel would not hearken, for they would not hearken unto me, for all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-headed and hard-hearted, right? Meaning we're hard-headed people, right? You know, God knows that his people are the most hard-headed people on the planet. Although, you know, we say the Edomites are the worst people on the planet, but we have to be the most hard-headed people on the planet, because we can see something and still do the opposite, right? So it all goes back to being childlike and being teachable. Like a child is teachable, right? You can mold a child into what you want them to be, right? So that's why it says here, it says, and he said unto me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and fill thy bowels with this roll. So we have to be filled with the real knowledge of the truth, right? That's why we have to push the reset button on our brain. understand that we have been lied to. Whether it's your family member, your pastor, your husband or girlfriend, whatever. You've been lied to, and it's okay. And maybe they did it on purpose, maybe they didn't. But we have to understand that we have to hit the reset and question everything, right? Question everything. But we don't question everything because we're so comfortable and we're used to the lie. But don't be that person, right? Be like that child that's constantly asking questions, that always want to know what's going on. That's what Christ is saying, right? So it says, back to 18, Matthew 18. And he called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, and become as a little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as a little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So have to be humble, meaning teachable. Don't be, oh, I think I know everything. You can't tell me nothing. Don't be that person. Don't be Kanye West. You can't tell me nothing, right? Don't be that guy, right? No. Even though that's the song, I like that song. But don't be that guy. But whosoever and whosoever shall receive one such little child in my name, receive me. So if you come, and it's using children metaphorically, but it's also speaking about us being childlike in this faith. Because when you come into the truth of the knowledge, you are a baby, right? Now me, I've been studying for every bit of maybe, I want to say 9 to 10 years, right? I've been in the truth. So spiritually speaking, I am 9 years old in this truth, right? Possibly 10, right? So I am still a child in the truth, right? So now, contextually speaking, right? So Christ is saying right here, it says, whosoever shall receive one such little child in my name, receive me. So whenever you're teaching a little one and you're instructing that little one, that one, and I mean, whether it can be a literal child or someone that's spiritually a child, that, so, and it says, if you receive them, then and you also, it says, whosoever receive one such little child in my name, receive me. So if you're taking the time to teach them and to help them, grow in their spirituality, that's, like I said, it's like Christ said you'll be received of him, right? Then it says, but whosoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it would be better for him to have a millstone hanging about his neck, that were drowned in the depths of the sea, right? So now this is talking about, like, hold on, Salakia real quick. Salakia. Hold on. Salakia. Where was I? So yeah, it says receive of me, right? So it says whoso receive one such little child in my name, receive me. But who shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, is better for him that a millstone were hang about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. So meaning, if you have somebody that's trying to grow in this knowledge, that's trying to, better themselves, right? And they looking at you as as their spiritual leader, someone they can come to, and you either, turn them off some type of way that kind of forces them out of the truth, or you kind of do something that kind of makes them, look at this whole thing different, and then, and now they done lost salvation because of the way you treated them when they were just a little baby in the truth, in the knowledge. You know, that's why you have to be patient, you know, with people. Because, you know, some people say to me, I get people will compliment me on me being patient when I stuff, right? Which is cool, right? Appreciate that, right? But, and I tell them, look, I understand that when I do this, I'm talking to people about stuff that they thought they knew, that they thought they knew all their life. And I'm coming out of nowhere saying, look, everything you thought you knew for your whole entire life is a lie. That's a hard thing to do, right? To tell a total stranger that everything that they thought they knew for their whole entire life, that their family probably told them or pastor probably told them, is a lie, right? So now, so like I said, that's, you know, so and that's hard. So you have to like I said says whosoever it says but whosoever should offend one of these little ones which believe in me. So like I said, so now as I'm telling them that whatever they thought they believe is a lie, right? But then let's say like, you know, they let's say like that's a person that God wants in the truth, because like I said, we already went through this. That God doesn't want every single body, every Israelite, but that's to say that's just somebody that He want. That's somebody He want. But I'm being, you know, nasty to him, short with him, rude to him, you know, or not, you know, being a brother by checking up on him and all that, right? You know, so it can be a offense to them, or it could be maybe I'm telling them, hey, you shouldn't do X, Y, Z, right? You know, you're an Israelite, you're a child of God. You shouldn't do this. Don't do this and don't do that, right? But then one day they see me doing this and doing that, all the stuff I told them that they shouldn't do, and now they see me do it, and now they like, oh damn, I thought dude was like, you know, like I was looking at him like, you know, he was like, damn, this just another nigga, right? So that's how you can offend somebody, offend one of the little ones that's trying their best to get, you know, closer to the Most High, and they know that you have the knowledge, and then you do something that kind of makes them like, damn, is this what the truth about? Is this what the Bible really about? Like, dang, I don't know if I want to be a part of that, right? So you don't want to offend the little ones, the ones that's not astute in this Bible. So you know, they might not, you know, understand, right? Like, for example, like, some people might have a problem with people drinking alcohol and teaching the Bible or reading the Bible, right? But according to the Bible, it doesn't say that you can't drink, but some people will have a problem with you having a drink, right? So now, say like now, I occasionally have a drink, right? Now, if I'm around a person that's learning in the truth, and you know they're under the impression, they probably got the school of thought that, oh well, you shouldn't be drinking and all that stuff, and you know, and maybe that's their understanding. So now, I know that they're a baby into the understanding, so I'm not gonna just be, you know, turning up bottles of liquor and stuff and around them, because then by them being a baby in the truth, that can be an offense to them. It'll be like, oh, well, I thought this person was a man of God, and all they do is this and that. So even though that's their understanding at that moment, because they're still a child, and as they grow into the faith, then they'll get a better understanding of what they thought they know. But you don't want to be that stumbling block while basically while a person is learning and understanding this Bible. You don't want to be the stumbling block that's hindering them from furthering their understanding of the Bible. That's basically what Christ is saying, right? Um, then it says, but whosoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hung about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Right. So now we broke this down by speaking spiritually, right? As far as being spiritually a child, right, and somebody mistreating you in a spiritual space, right? But then also this goes into child abuse too, and that's many different forms of that, of how people mistreat children, right? So Christ saying, if you mistreat these children, if you're a person that like to mistreat children, but whoso shall offend one of the little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hang around about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. So Christ don't play around with the kids. Christ love the kids, right? Jesus love the kids. So don't mess with the kids, right? Protect the children, right? Love the children, right? And, so don't be one of those people, right? I'm trying to keep it PG for the, Facebook, YouTube purposes, but y'all know those type of people that do things to the kids, right? And Christ loved the kids. He said he's gonna put a millstone around your neck and toss you in the ocean for doing stuff like that, right? Moving on. Verse 7. Woe unto the world because of offense, for it must need to be that offense come, but woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. So it says, and that's what the world is offended at the Israelites, because we teach the truth of the Bible. We teach what Christ taught. Because if Christ didn't teach what we taught, they would have never killed them. If Christ was teaching this bullcrap that they teach on every Sunday, they would have left them alone, right? We wouldn't have never, Christ wouldn't have been, something that, he wouldn't have been as spectacular as, because it would have been nothing to, but he was a revolutionary. He was a nationalist. He was someone that was for his people. So he didn't teach this soft, docile, slave mentality stuff, right? Because we just read in the last chapter about how he was saying just paying taxes to the Roman government is slavery, right? Paying money to a foreign government is slavery. So you knew that he was not playing when it came to his people, right? So it says, woe unto the world because of offense, for it must need be that offense come, but woe to that man by whom the offense come. Therefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut it off, and cast them from thee. It's better for thee to enter into life a hawk and maim, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire. So what does that mean? What it means is, right, it says, let me start from top. It says, woe to the world because of the offense. So, like I was just explaining before, it's going to be people that hate us because we are us. Just like they hated Christ, right? Because they hated the truth of the Bible. When Christ was teaching and his disciples was teaching, they was teaching the truth, and they hated it. They had to kill him, right? Just like in John, let me see if I can get it real quick. If I can remember. Right here, John. Hold on, make sure. Yeah, I'm start at John 11 and 47, right? So this is what we got to understand. It says, read back up here. Hold up. It says, but whoso shall find offense in these little ones, okay, yeah, right? So now I'm talking about people being offended in Christ. So it says, I'm start at John 11:47. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, What do we? For this man do many miracles. So they talking about Christ and they jealous of him. Like, man, what can we do with this dude? Man, he doing many miracles. Like, he actually out here doing this stuff. Like, I know we up here playing church. You know, we up here playing holy, playing like we're the man of God. But this nigga out here doing things. And we ain't doing nothing. Pretty soon people gonna realize it. So what's going on? What we gonna do? So it says, then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, What do we? For this man do many miracles. If we let him thus alone, meaning if we don't do anything about this nigga out here doing things, all men will believe on him, right? So they was in fear. They took offense to the power that Christ had and what he was doing. So they was like, oh man, all people is gonna believe on him now, right? So they say, well, his people rejected him. No, they didn't. They did not reject Christ. The upper echelon, the hierarchs in the religious society rejected Christ, as we're reading here, because we're going to see why. But the people didn't reject him because obviously they didn't. It says, if we left him thus alone, all men believe on him, and the Romans. So it couldn't have been like, oh, everybody just rejected Christ, because it was to the point where the Pharisees like, dude, we have to do something about this man, because if we don't, all people is going to believe on him. And then the Romans, what the Romans going to do? It says, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. So they was worried about keeping their Uncle Tom ass up in high position, like a lot of our black church leaders do today. That's why they don't tell us the truth, because they don't want Master to come from the White House and take their little church away from them. Put sanctions on them, put little citations and all that, right? So they have to teach what that 5013C thingy says for them to teach, right? They have to teach that. Because the government, if they don't teach what the government says they should teach, then they're not going to have a church, right? Or at least not a profitable church, a profitable church, right? So it says, then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees and the councils, and they said, What do we? For this man do many miracles. If we let this alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans should come and take away both our place and nation. Right? So people were offended that Christ and his disciples was out here doing what they were doing and teaching the people, right? So it wasn't that the whole nation, hear some dummies would say, well, they rejected Christ. We just read who rejected him. It was the upper echelon, the highest people in society, the priesthood, right? Because they didn't want their positions of power to be taken from them. Because then the Romans see that Christ has influence of the people. Then the Romans say, well, hell, we don't need Caiaphas and Agrippa. Just put Jesus in power. Take Agrippa old ass out of here and put Jesus and his people in power then. Because the people love Jesus. They following him. So maybe we can use Jesus instead of, what's the little old bastard name? Caiaphas, right? We forget, we can use them instead of Agrippa and them, right? That's what they was worried about. That's why they have to put a hit out on Jesus, right? Because he was teaching the people. And it says, but whoso find offense in one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him to tie a millstone were hang about his neck, and that were drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of offense, and it must need to be offenses come. But woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. Right? It says, therefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off, and cast them from thee. So, meaning, if it's something in your life, you have something that you're doing, right, that's causing you to not stay on track and follow and stay and keep the commandments of the Most High, cut that off. Don't allow that to fester to the point where it makes you lose your soul. So, if so it's about making sacrifices, right? So, it might be maybe you like eating pork, you like going to Red Lobster, getting that little sea bucket thing. What I don't know what they got, but the stuff where the whole give you a mixture of a whole bunch of different stuff, right? A whole bunch of garbage that people like to buy. So maybe that's your thing, and maybe you say, well, I like the stuff how the Israelites break the Bible down and stuff, but I mean I do like bacon. I love my bacon. I love my pork. I love my shrimps. I love my lobsters though, right? That's your stumbling block, and that's what's going to keep you from getting into the kingdom, because you essentially love pork or shrimp, crab, and lobster more than your sweet Jesus, more than more than the Most High. And that's what it's going to boil down to. You have to ask yourself a question: do I love God, or do I love what I love more? Right? And you have to make a decision, right? And I was talking to my cousin the other day, and and this be a problem with a lot of our female sisters too. And so we having a little family, a little function thing, out there trying to function, right? So then I walk up there, and she's like, "Yeah, you're an Israelite, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." Then she's like, "Yeah, I don't know if I could be an Israelite because y'all believe in having more than one woman, right?" So I'm looking like, all right, well, I don't know who told you all of that, but I'm like, being an Israelite, you're not required to have more than one woman, right? Although some people in their relationships, if that's what they agreed upon and that's how they doing it, then all praises to them, right? But it's not a standard or a requirement to have. If you're a man, you have to have more than one woman, right? Or if you're a woman, you have to, have your man, to have more than, you have to be okay with your man having more than one woman. That's not a law or a standard. But if that's what y'all agree to, and that's the ramifications of y'all relationship, then that's just what it is. So in our culture, polygamy is not frowned upon. That's the only thing. See, in American society, polygamy is frowned upon. All I was just explaining to him is, it's not a standard, it's not a law that you have to have more than one wife and a woman has to be okay with her man having more than one wife. That's not a law. But it's not frowned upon neither. That's what we have to understand in our culture. And if we understand just the law of polygamy on how we did it, we won't have baby mama drama, baby daddy drama. None of that stuff will exist if we understand that in our culture, a man having more than one woman was never frowned upon. It wasn't something looked at as a bad thing, right? It's only in this American society that is looked upon that as a bad thing. So now that's her stumbling block. So that's what's keeping her from fully listening and coming straight into the truth. The fact that she don't want to share her man with nobody else, right? And not understanding that a lot of you women is sharing your man anyway without even knowing it. He's just not telling you that he got another woman on the side. At least you can deal with a man that can say, look, I like you and I like her. I love you and I love her. And I'm going to love both of y'all to death, right? I'm going to love her to the day I die. I'm going to love you to the day I die. Both of y'all are going to be mine forever, right? See, now that's the difference between a man lying to you about how many women he got and telling you you're the only one when he got about 3, 4, 5 other ones, versus I love you and I love her. And I'm going to be with both of y'all forever. Right? There's a difference in that. And so, because we believe once you have sex with that woman, that's your wife. That's your woman forever, for life. You can't leave her unless one of y'all die. Right? So, that's how we do it. Then it says, but that was our stumbling block. And a lot of our people have this stuff like that that's stopping them from getting into the truth. You know, whether it's just something like that, or whether it's something you like to eat, or, you know, just whatever, right? Like, you know, my rib tell me one time, a while back, a long time ago, that she don't know she can get into the whole not liking white people thing. So I say, being an Israelite is not about not liking white people. Because a lot of times you see, I be talking mostly about the Christian church. You know, I might mention those people when the subject, you know, calls for me to talk about those people. But mostly, I talk about the falsehood of religion and what we have been taught as a people. That's, you know, just so happened, sometimes those people come up, depending on the topic of discussion, right? But you're not required to hate anybody. That's not what, this is a love thing. Here at the Covenant of Zealots, we are a love group, right? We love our black and brown people, right? We will die for our black and brown people, right? Or kill, you know, whichever one. We would do that for our people, right? Because we are a love group. We don't hate none of our people, right? In fact, we are so much a love group that we love black and brown people so much that we don't want nobody else outside of that to deal with, to mess that up, right? That's how much we love, right? We're not a hate group. We're a love group. And we love our black and brown people to the death, right? So, that's the thing, right? So it says, therefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut it off and cast them from thee. It's better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire. So again, like I said, any stumbling block, any type of thing that's within you, that's any uncleanness within inside of you, you want to try to cast that off, right? Because, you know, rather, and what it mean by cutting off your hand or your feet or whatever, meaning it can be something that you hold dear to you. It can be something important that you thought was important, something that meant a lot to you, but it's stopping you from getting into the truth, right? Like, I used this example the other day, like Ezekiel. Ezekiel is a prophet of God. Ezekiel had a mission that God wanted him to do. But Ezekiel loved his wife a lot, you know, so much that the love for his wife was kind of slowing him down from doing the work of the Lord. So God said, Ezekiel, I'm going to kill your wife tomorrow, and I need you to go out and do the work. And I don't want you to cry. Don't shed not one tear tomorrow when you see that your wife is dead. Go out, prophesy, all that stuff, right? Because God wants you to do what he wants you to do. And if it's something that is stopping you from doing what he needs you to do, he's going to remove it, right? And he had to remove Ezekiel's wife because he loved her too much, you know, to do what God asked him to do, right? So it says, so rather than live having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire. So, like I said, so sometimes you have to, like that Bone Thugs and Harmony song, there's always something you got to give up to get everything you want. You know what I'm saying? So that's basically what it said. You got to give up, to get the kingdom of heaven, you have to give up those nasty, filthy habits that you may enjoy internally. You might internally like it, but you have to give those up so you can get the kingdom of heaven. And it says, and after thy eye offend thee, if thy eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, if it's if it is better for thee to enter into life with one eye rather than having two eyes, to be cast into the fire. So just basically, like I said, same thing. Just making sure, checking yourself, right? Checking yourself, making sure you are aligned with the Word of God, internally. Making sure that you're doing what God wants you to do, right? And making sure you're not being an offense to the Most High. Making sure you're constantly pruning yourself, like how they say in the garden world. Pruning yourself, making sure you fit the bill of what Most High wants you to do, right? So that's what he's basically saying, where it says, therefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into the life halt or maimed rather than having two hands or 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire. If thy eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life with one eye rather than having two eyes to be cast into hell fire. So always examine yourself, making sure you doing what you should be doing, right? According to the Word of God, right? Then if you find any uncleanliness in you, then you have to cut it off, whether it's gonna hurt you dearly or not. And that could be a family member, a friend, or just whatever you got eternally that you might enjoy doing, or whatever the case may be, right? So, and it says, take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I pray unto you that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. So, like I said, be nice to the kids, because like we said earlier, Christ loved the kids, Jesus loved the kids. So you don't be out here hurting, doing harm to the kids, right? And it says, because it says the little ones have the Father's ear all the time, because God loves children, right? Now, although we're Israelites and we talk about how God loves us and all that stuff, right? But God don't want things to happen to any type of children, right? Because think about how mad he was with those Canaanites for their child sacrifice. That's why he sent us over there, to clear out the land and decide to give it to us. Like, look, they over there doing child sacrifice and all this other stuff. God is not down with that stuff, right? Now, although God gave us our laws that we should follow as a nation, but God also have what they call universal laws. Things that he just don't universally get it down with, right? And he does not get down with child sacrifice, no matter if you're Israelite or not, right? He doesn't get down with homosexuality, whether you're an Israelite or not. That's why he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, right? There's certain things that God just don't get down with, whether you're an Israelite or not. And he will get with you if you're doing those things, right? So we gotta understand that. So it says, take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I will say unto you that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. So meaning, if they just murmur a cry to the Most High God and God hears it, he's gonna get active, right? He's gonna do what he think he need to do for whatever harm that was caused to that little one, right? So watch out. Then it says, for the Son of Man is come to save which is lost. How think ye, if men have 100 sheep and one of them go astray, do not he leave the 99 and go unto the mountains and seek which is gone astray? If so, how be that he find it? Verily I say unto you, he rejoiced more of that sheep than the 99 which went not astray. Because that's how much he loves us. He don't want none of us to go off. He wants us to all be one big happy family, right? Big one happy family getting along, right? And and he don't want that dysfunction. He don't want that dysfunctional family, right? So he will go save that one, right? Then it says, and if and and if so be that he find it, verily I say unto you, he rejoiced more than that sheep than the 99 which went not astray. So if so so even so, it is not the will of your Father which in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. So God don't want to have to do his end like that. God don't want us to perish. He wants us to do right. Like I said, he don't want a dysfunctional family. He wants us to all be together, right? He don't want us to perish. Because the Bible says he takes no pleasure in the wicked, right? So when you have to go ahead and put a wicked person down for being wicked, he take no pleasure in that, but because he wants us all to come together. What I mean all, talking about the Israelites, right? It says more so, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. And that's what we need to do. This is how we can fix a lot of problems in the hood, right? A lot of times we get into it with people, and then instead of going to talk to that person directly, we go tell everybody else what's going on with me and that person. Then by the time whatever I said get back to the person, we know the game of telephone. What I said ain't exactly what I said no more. They done added and put a little sauce on it and spiced it up a little bit. And before you know it, I done called this man a bitch ass nigga. And I ain't even say nothing like that, right? That's how stuff changes over time. Because if we have conflicts and we don't address them with each other and we allow them to fester, or, because then people start creating stuff in their head, right? Not use this, like even the story with David in Aspelan, his son, right? When one if you're familiar with the story, I'm gonna paraphrase. So one of David's sons, end up doing some crazy stuff to his sister. Then the other brother got mad and unalive his brother for doing that. And he thought when he did that David was mad at him, but David wasn't mad at him for doing that. He just wanted to talk to his son and and have him work it out. But how it all transpired that people, they never actually had that talk. So he thinking that his dad is coming after him to come kill him. So he put an army together to go fight against his dad. So they never got that. David never had that chance to tell his son, like, nah, we good. I don't have no problems with you. I understood what you did to your brother and all that stuff because I didn't like that stuff neither, right? He never had the chance, right? So that's why, it's like, where it say here, right here, it says, where we at? Boom, boom, boom. So that's why it says, moreover, if thy brother shall transgress against thee, go and tell him his faults between thee and him alone. Right? So when we go and have problems with each other, if somebody offend us, if we was to only just go speak with them like, hey, look, I didn't like how you did such and such, or I didn't like how you spoke to me right there, or I didn't like how you move right there, or I didn't like how you blah, blah, blah. But you do it in a way that you can have the conversation. Because I tell people this, like, when you having these type of conversations, you want to kind of picture in your head how you want the conversation to go, right? So you want to be able to, make your point, and so because like I said, you don't want to I say, like, you don't want to come at another grown person like you checking them or you putting them in a place. Because you can't check another grown person. You can't put another grown person in a place. Because that ain't going to go well. Because another person going to be like, I'm grown just like you. I'm not no kid. You can't talk to me like that. So so it's all about, that's why you have to have a good idea how you want this conversation to go and the outcome of this conversation. How and make sure you stick to that standard, right? Although sometimes people are difficult, right? People are difficult. But when you see the conversation veering off of what you initially planned, then you have to, since you know the plan, they don't know the plan, but you know the plan. It becomes your responsibility to kind of steer the conversation back to where recenter it back to where it needs to be. So it won't turn into something confrontational to where now you hate each other, right? So, like I said, so you be able to explain to a person, okay, well, I didn't like how you did this or did that, right? Then y'all can talk about it, right? Then the person might agree with you and be like, you know what? You're right. Maybe I was wrong. I shouldn't have did it like that. I understand, right? So this is what he says. He says, moreover, if thy brother shall transgress against thee, and go and tell his faults between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou shalt gain a brother. So now you talk to him, be like, look, I ain't like how you did that. Then he like, you know what? I didn't think of it like that. You know what? You're right. I'm bogus for that. My bad. I apologize. So now y'all can move on. Y'all cool. He heard you. He listened to you. Or she heard you. She listened to you, whatever the case may be. And now y'all can move on. Y'all become stronger and better after that. Because now I can talk to this person when it's a problem. We can talk about it and we can work through it, right? And it says, but if he would not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that the mouth of 2 or 3 witness every word may be established. So say like, dude is giving you, he's a difficult person to deal with. You trying to talk to him, they like, man, I ain't do none of that stuff. That's not true, whatever, right? Then like, okay, well, then you bring you a witness or two, right? And they can say like, look, yes, you do those things, or yeah, you did that, or and you have witnesses that can come and vouch for the complaint that you may be making towards that person. So what it says, then it says, and if he's still neglect to hear them, tell it to the church. So now you can, and the church is Israel, right? So don't let it, because the white supremacist cult called Christianity that took over the word church. The Israelites was called the church in the wilderness when we were with Moses. So that's the church, right? So don't get caught up on the word church, because we are the church, the Israelites, right? So it says, but if he neglect to hear the church, but if he neglect to hear them, tell it to the church. So now you go public. Now you can go to Facebook or go on Instagram or however you people like to do and put people on blast. Or tell everybody, oh, this person is a no good piece of whatever, right? You can go, now you can do it because you came to them man to man or woman to woman. Then after they still didn't hear you, then you came back with your witnesses, and they was being rude to you and the witness. So now this person just a difficult person to deal with. You can't talk to them. There's no reasoning with them. So you cut them off and you tell everybody how, unruly of a person they is, and that's why you don't deal with them. Then you can do that. But a lot of times, what happens, people will offend us, and we go straight to this step first. We put it all out there and let the whole public, be the jury, the judge and the jury to the issue. So now everybody put their 2 cents in, and down the little flicker that came to a flame, and now it started to a whole big old forest fire over some stuff that you could have just went to that person alone about and talked to him about, but you didn't, right? So it says, and if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it to the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be thee as a heathen man, a republic, a heathen man, a publican, right? So Jesus said, look, after you did all of that, you ain't gotta mess with the nigga no more, right? Treat him like a damn heathen, a Gentile. Treat him like he's not one of us no more. He's not like us. So if he want to be unruly, you shun him. We're gonna shun this nigga until he get his act right, right? Or shun him forever, however the case may be. That's what we used to do. We need to bring back shunning. I remember shunning used to be the thing. Do people shun anymore? I don't think people shun anymore because it seems like people are allowed to do some messed up stuff and then they come back and everybody's cool with it. It's like, nah, what happened to the shunning? Right? We bringing that back, right? So it says, verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. Again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth and touching anything that they say shall ask, it shall be done. So, we two are in agreements. You coming up with a plan, and it's in righteousness. God is gonna help you out with that, right? He's gonna help you if you're doing it in righteousness, right? And God is with that. So it says, and it says, again I say unto you. Okay, yeah. Then it says, for two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Right? So when 2 or 3 are gathered, he is in the midst of them. And we're having church right now. We're having church on a Monday because 2 or 3 or more gathered today, and he's in the midst. So, like I said, we are the church, right? And the church is wherever we is, right? And he says, for there says, again I say unto you, if 2 of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them, my Father which is in heaven, right? So that's what we as we come into this understanding, one mind, one body, one baptism, right? And like I said, then anything that we ask for, then God will see that we get it, right? Because we're doing it in righteousness. And it says, as for the 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me? And I forgive him, till 7 times? And Jesus said to him, I say not until thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 70, right? So what does this mean? That means that doesn't mean like you take 70 and you times it by 70 and that's the number. No. What he's saying is you give people a chance, right? Don't be merciful. He's talking about mercy here. That's what he's talking about. So when somebody does something to you, you be merciful. Because you didn't always treat people the way that people wanted to be treated, or you did some jacked up stuff to somebody that somebody didn't like, right? And they perhaps showed you mercy. Right? So you don't want to be that person like, so just cold hearted, you want people to forgive you, but you're not forgiving them. Right? So it's talking about being mercy. When somebody does something to you, you forgive them, right? You give them another shot. That's what he's saying. Give them another shot. Then it says, and Jesus said unto him, I say not until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. But for much as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and his children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the Lord of the servant was moved with compassion. So now the master was threatening to sell his servant off because his servant was supposed to produce a certain amount of money, and he's not making that a certain amount of production that he needs. So now he's about to sell him and his family, right? So then he says, then the Lord of that servant was moved to compassion and loosed him and forgave him of his debt. Right? So now, after the guy begged for his life and not to get, his family and all, so he do have compassion, right? It says, but the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants which owed him 100 pence. And he said, lad, lay my hands, and he laid his hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me that thou owest. And the fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, I have patience with me, I will pay thee all. And he would not. Right? So he didn't have patience with his guy, right? The same way how his master, his employer, showed him patience and mercy. He forgot that's his situation. That he was once that same guy until somebody showed him grace and mercy. So now here's somebody that's now he's coming to this person and he wants his money, and now this person asks for grace and mercy, and he's neglecting to show them the same favor that he was once showed, right? Then it says and he would not, but went to cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw that what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told unto their Lord all that was done. Then his Lord, after that he had called him, and said unto him, O wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desired me. Should not thou have also had compassion on thy fellow servant? And that's what we do. We don't have compassion on our fellow people because we'll go through some stuff and we know that stuff was jacked up. Instead of helping the next person that's probably going through the same thing, we be like, let them deal with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I made it out. Hopefully they'll do it. But we don't have compassion. We need more compassion and love for people that look just like us, right? We have all the world, all the love for everybody else, except for people that's just like us, black and brown, right? We want to go love, master, and assimilate to everything that they do. But anybody black and brown like you, we have lack of compassion, right? We're so quick to do harm to each other, so quick to hurt somebody, downplay somebody that's black and brown just like you, right? So he's saying, shouldest thou not have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I pity thee? And his Lord was wroth and delivered him to the tormentors, till he should pay all that was due unto him. Right? So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if ye from your hearts forgive not every one of his brother their trespass, forgive your brother their trespasses. So that's how it is. We got to forgive those that trespass against us, right? If we want God to forgive us, right? So that's how we fix the problems in the hood, right? Learn how to forgive each other, right? And we and treat each other right, and don't try to take advantage of one another, right? And that's how we fix the problems in the hood, right? And what I say here, where that? So, but yeah, not like so. Yeah, treating each other well, right, being uh being good leaders to those that need them, right, and like I said, and just keeping the statutes and commandments, and you know, and making sure everything is everything. But so yeah, that's what Jesus was teaching, right? Jesus taught us how to be loving to each other, how to take care of one another.
To use this feature,
right?
Please make sure your app is running and can access the internet.
And how to keep the hood protected, right, and safe. How to love the kids, how to love the children. Like I said over here, we gotta protect the kids, and treat each other right, and so yeah, we have to understand that. So hold on, real quick. But so yeah, that's 18 and 17 and 18. We're gonna get into 19 and 20 next time, So yeah, we continuing on in this "What Would Jesus Do" series, and we gonna be finishing up Matthew soon. Cause what we got, like, I think Matthew 28 chapters, right? Hold on one second. Yeah, Matthew's 28 chapters. So yeah, we're gonna be finishing up pretty soon. And yeah, just double check, yeah. And we probably right after that, we probably jump right into the next gospel, Mark, right? And go through Mark chapter by chapter, and also too, because Mark is a reading from a different point of view, and Mark is not a eyewitness, right? So people don't understand. Like, yeah, you got the 12 disciples, but Mark and Luke didn't walk with Christ. They came a little later. So, but they know the disciples, so they wrote their account. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. So of course, I'm gonna say shalom, peace. Hopefully that was edifying. Getting a little understanding of what Jesus is teaching, and what he was teaching, and all that. So I'm gonna say peace, shalom. Until next time, we out. Let my man DB Goods take us out.
I ain't really wanna be goofy when it's wartime. Niggas love the clout chase, that's the shit they glorify. I don't even try hard, that's gangsta shit he wanna lie. No records of a trace when your crime is organized. No man is over me, I'm highest in the morning time. Low key in the birds when I cross the state borderline. Spin your block and horrify. Fuck you, bitch, you mortified. I'm standing where you draw the line, nigga, hold the line. My nutsack, I'm grabbing mine, both of mine, quit holding mine. You gon' get this work and some overtime, you know the vibe. Little nigga, you know it's me. I don't need them to notice me. When conflict get crucial. I can't help but do it bogusly. Smoke you like the stove in you, beat you like the stove for me. Niggas out of body, put you back where you supposed to be. I shoot at you waking in the moment, niggas toast for you. My niggas do the most for me, that's what they supposed to. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. Yeah, you know what's going, stop playing with me. Real gangsters move critically when that shit get critical. No peace amongst enemies, no pity for the pitiful. Real nigga down to the bones and the minerals. Stick to the G code, I never told another soul. True to the literature, now salute the general. Kill you on your birthday, then slide on your funeral. It ain't about the clout chase, I'm a man of principle. Niggas out of body, now they body isn't critical. Cradle to the casket, the life we live is typical. God body, cause I will depart you from your physical. Niggas living fantasies, act like they was the only one. Don't talk to me about these streets, fuck you think you know me from. Just cause you related to them gangsters, that don't make you one. I ain't got no bloodline in these streets, but I can spill me some. I ain't got no mercy for this bitch, if she outside with us. They on demon time, we bring them hell in the fire with us. All this smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block.